For over a century, the pharmaceutical industry has operated on a single premise: treating the human body like a machine. When a biological symptom appears, we design a synthetic chemical to forcefully suppress it. This paradigm, known as chemical reductionism, relies on hitting the body with a chemical hammer, synthetic molecules engineered to bind with non-physiological affinity. Because our bodies evolved over millions of years to recognize foreign artificial entities, they interpret these synthetic xenobiotics as a toxicological attack. The organism mounts a systemic defense called homeostatic rebellion, attempting to bypass the blockade to restore equilibrium. This biological friction is why 90% of early-stage synthetic drug candidates fail in clinical trials. It leaves the industry with a historical average success rate of just 7 to 8%, while often triggering dose-limiting toxicities and terminal addiction. Modern pharmacology has reached a terminal plateau, caught in a cycle where synthetic chemicals fight against the body's native evolutionary survival mechanisms. This scientific crisis is now colliding with an existential macroeconomic deadline for the world's largest pharmaceutical companies. As this data illustrates, the industry faces a $400 billion revenue drop-off known as Patent Cliff 2.0. Between 2025 and 2033, over 190 mega-blockbuster drugs will lose their exclusive patent protection. Companies like Merck and Bristol-Myers Squibb face a loss of nearly half their total annual revenue as their primary assets expire. Because their internal research pipelines have stagnated under high failure rates, they cannot organically replace this vanishing income. Big Pharma has amassed a $1.3 trillion mergers and acquisitions war chest that they are desperately searching for a platform technology that is already de-risked and ready to fill this massive revenue void. 15 years ago, Boris Markosian, a scientist trained at the Salk Institute and UCSD, realized that to cure disease, we had to stop inventing harder chemical hammers and instead learn to speak the body's native language. Markosian synthesized 15 years of interdisciplinary research across computational biology and physiology to solve a century-old paradox: extracting fragile, heat-labile signaling proteins from mammalian tissue while keeping them in their active native states. He developed the thermal guardrail and cold stop protocols. The result is Instructional Medicine, a platform that delivers natively folded mammalian signaling peptides. These molecules act as biological software, providing the specific instructions the human body already utilizes to orchestrate its own repair. This platform targets the thermosensitive peptidome, a specific molecular weight window between 3,000 and 10,000 daltons, where the body's most potent endogenous signaling molecules reside. These biological blueprints maintain absolute structural homology with human receptors. They communicate with the body using its precise evolutionary syntax, triggering native signaling cascades for stem cell activation and stress resilience. Because these signals are natively recognized, they generate no homeostatic rebellion and no toxic metabolites. They work with the organism's autoregulatory systems to restore baseline homeostasis. This shift fundamentally alters the risk calculus of drug development. By eliminating xenobiotic toxicity as a failure mechanism, these native biologicals project an exponentially higher success rate compared to the 7% average for synthetic pills. To scale this, Markosian developed ASAP, an AI signaling platform that has mapped these extracted biological instructions against 215 specific disease pathways, from neuroendocrine disorders to systemic tissue repair. This biological breakthrough arrived as the federal landscape shifted to protect complex biologics over traditional synthetics. Under the Inflation Reduction Act, synthetic small molecule drugs are subjected to mandatory government price controls just 9 years after approval, or restriction often called the pill penalty. In contrast, complex native biologics like the iBio platform are granted a 13-year pricing exemption. For a single blockbuster indication, those 4 extra years of revenue protection are worth an estimated $20 billion. Then, in early 2026, the FDA formally adopted the plausible mechanism pathway. This directive allows mechanism-proven therapies to bypass redundant, capital-intensive clinical trial phases if their biological target engagement is already certain. This convergence has turned instructional medicine into the most prized asset class for a pharmaceutical industry that is currently legally and financially desperate for biological infrastructure. Markosian's company, Instructional Biology Inc., is now leveraging these reforms through a regulatory maneuver called the Merida Bridge. The bridge combines data from a 2025 Japanese double-blind clinical trial with 6 years of real-world safety data from Markosian's precursor supplement, vitamin placenta, which has thousands of documented human exposures with 0 serious adverse events. The Merida Bridge satisfies FDA requirements for real-world evidence, legally allowing IBO to bypass Phase 1 and 2 trials. Because the ASAP platform already mapped these peptides to 215 indications, the pipeline advances directly to Phase 3, cutting development from 10 years to 3. Boris Markosian has provided the pharmaceutical industry with a path to backfill the $400 billion revenue void. By speaking the body's native biochemical language, he has transitioned medicine from an era of chemical coercion to an era of biological instruction.